Are we sure Trump knows what tariffs will do? Yes, dude. Come on. Yes, there are people in his. No, I'm sorry. Like, there's no way. There's no way he doesn't understand what. Okay, that's crazy. Yes, he's very stupid, but I think he understands what tariffs are. Okay, now I'm beginning to understand who Donald Trump was doing this for. It's people like Sergeant Gonzo. What do you mean fixing the border? Do you think there was like? It's even funnier because we're talking about the Canadian border, okay? Like, the southern border is one thing. I have also often joked about how oh, why don't we do border prevention in the northern border as well? Which seemingly Trump heard those concerns and was like, yeah, that's right. We should also fix the northern border. Like, what do you think? What do you think was fixed in the border? Yeah, build the northern wall. Look at the Trudeau tweet. No, I know. One of the few things coming out of this is the amount of Canada coverage you're doing. What is this? Chatters like this person will unironically behave like this. I'm willing to pay more for quality products if they're made in America by Americans who are paid a decent income. You guys don't even think fast food workers should make a livable wage. Yeah. The Canada thing was already announced in December 2024. They're just repackaging it as though it's a new thing. Yeah, but guess what? Donald Trump supporters can act like he got a massive W by enforcing America's power at the global stage. Okay? And that's what really matters. They're just doing victory laps over here over virtually nothing. Okay? Hell yeah, brother. We did it. We freaking did it. Trump didn't ask for anything. I know. That's the funniest part. They were like, hey, why are you doing this? This is going to be damaging to both of our economies. We are your most valuable trade partner. And Donald Trump's response to that literally was, oh, we're killing it. Like fentanyl. We're just doing it for fentanyl, I think. I've decided now that it's fentanyl related. You're doing fentanyl at your border. That's why we're doing these issues. Why is Xi not getting an off-ramp? Is it because he isn't calling him as a power move? I don't know.
Do everything to avoid this totally unnecessary and stupid tariff wars or trade.
C'est simple. Nous, on pense que la priorité, elle est à cet agenda stratégique et de sécurité de nos frontières. Et si nous étions attaqués sur les sujets commerciaux, l'Europe, comme une puissance qui se tient, devra se faire respecter et donc réagir.
What is clear, there are no winners in trade wars. If United States and the US start the trade war, then the one laughing on the side is China. We are very interlinked. We need America and America needs us.
Beide, die USA wie Europa, profitieren vom Warenaustausch, vom Austausch von Dienstleistungen. Wenn jetzt Zollpolitik das schwierig macht, dann wäre das schlecht für die USA, schlecht für Europa.
On the question, firstly, of tariffs, obviously it's early days. And I think what's really important is open and strong trading relations. And that's been the basis of my discussions with President Trump.
We start with our breaking news. President Trump has...
What? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. We're going to do tariffs on the UK? For what? Doing tariffs on the UK is like doing tariffs on Israel, dude. What are you talking about? What's next? Are we going to put tariffs on North Dakota? Like, what are you talking about? Also, what's the reason? Are they also trafficking fentanyl? Are they trafficking fentanyl into the United States, Donald? What is the UK doing?
Told the BBC that the UK is way out of line when it comes to trading with the US and that tariffs might be imposed. But he said his main aim is the European Union, which he has warned will face import taxes soon, accusing the EU of not buying anything from the United States. Let's have a listen to what President Trump told our correspondent Nomir Iqbal during a press huddle at Joint Base Andrews.
What country will be next on Paris? Would you consider taxing the UK, for example?
Well, we're going to see what happens. It'll happen. But we're going to, we'll see how things work out. It might happen with that, but it will definitely happen with the European Union. I can tell you that, because they've really taken advantage of us. And We have over a $300 billion deficit. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products. They take almost nothing. And we take everything from them, millions of cars, tremendous amounts of food and farm products. So the UK is way out of line, and we'll see. The UK, but European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line, but I'm sure I think that one can be worked out. But the European Union it's an atrocity, what they've done.
What's the relationship with the EU?
Well, Prime Minister Starmer has been very nice. We've had a couple of meetings. We've had numerous phone calls. We're getting along very well. We'll see whether or not we can balance out our budget. With the European Union, it's $350 billion deficit. So obviously something's going to take place there.
Well, those comments from President Trump on the United Kingdom and European Union follows a furious backlash to his announcement of levies on goods from Canada, Mexico and China. He's expected to speak to the leaders of both Canada and Mexico later on Monday. On Saturday, Mr. Trump signed off on 25% tariffs on neighbouring Mexico and Canada, despite sharing a free trade pact. And he hit China with a 10% tariff, in addition to existing levies brought in by Joe Biden. All three countries have vowed retaliation, prompting concerns of a trade war and rising prices. But on his Truth Social platform, Mr. Trump said, "We will make America great again, and it will all be worth the price that must."
Are we sure Trump knows what tariffs will do? Yes, dude. Come on. Yes, there are people in his... No, I'm sorry. Like, there's no way. There's no way he doesn't understand what... Okay? That's crazy. Yes, he's very stupid, but I think he understands what tariffs are. Like, maybe he's using... I mean, Themasius says something in the chat that I think could be the reason, where he's just, like, trying to bully countries with tariffs in an effort to force them to purchase more American products or something. You know what I mean? I suspect that is, like... the only logical conclusion here, the only logic here is that, like, everyone needs to get a F-150. If you don't get the baby killer mobile, okay, if you don't purchase ginormous quantities of cars that literally will destroy your roads and won't even fit in your tiny little streets to begin with, that have no place to park them, we will try to, I guess, starve your country. I also think it's apparent he wants to abolish income tax and tariff act as a justification. Yeah, no, that's the other side of the story. Yes, he just wants to justify no income tax to help his billionaire friends, which is funny because, like, they already avoid all taxes. Like, the income tax is so marginal to the billionaires. It's just, like, in principle, the only progressive form of taxation that remains, and he wants it to all be regressive. Would you like 8 or 12 cylinders of Amerifat made freedom? Yes.
Paid. Well, the issue of tariffs is likely to be discussed when Sir Keir Starmer meets European Union leaders in Brussels today. On Sunday, the British Prime Minister met the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz at Chequers. Sir Keir said he wants a reset in the relationship between the UK and its European neighbours, but Britain will not be rejoining the EU. It's the first time since Brexit that a British Prime Minister will attend a European Council meeting. Downing Street says it represents Sir Keir.
Donald Trump, the American dollar, and China. What to watch for during 2025. Donald Trump wants to boost exports, to bring American jobs back to the United States, and to shrink the American trade deficit. For that, he needs a lower value of the dollar. For that, he needs a weaker dollar. But at the same time, Donald Trump wants a strong dollar, and he will not brook any discussion of ending the exorbitant privilege, the centrality, the hegemony, the dominance of the American dollar in international transactions. Can Donald Trump possibly have both? Donald Trump's first problem is that the tariffs that he has invested so much political capital in introducing, announcing, and advocating for will most likely boost the value of the dollar. Why? Primarily because every time there is global uncertainty, whenever there is a problem that emanates from the United States, whether that was the 2008 crisis or whatever crisis there is a paradoxical...
Tariffs can't come anywhere near covering the income tax revenue the government receives. A universal tariff of 10% would cover 5% of the federal budget. Income tax receipts cover 50%. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's an adequate solution. I mean, tariffs also don't make sense either. It doesn't have to make sense, but at least there might be like some semblance of logic behind it. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not saying this is a reasonable solution. It's unreasonable, but at least there is like some semblance of a justification for it that is written out.
Rush of foreign money into the United States, boosting the dollar. So if Trump's tariffs create global uncertainty, the likely outcome will be an increased value of the dollar. And that's his first problem, because if his tariffs succeed in creating a lot of consternation across the world, in China, in the European Union, in Britain, the result will be that even if imports initially shrink as a result of these large tariffs, the influx of money into the United States of capital is going to boost the value of the dollar, therefore countering whatever effects the tariffs had on limiting imports and enhancing American exports. Donald Trump's second problem is that if he proceeds with his very large tax cuts, especially for corporations and the oligarchs and the very rich in the United States, this is also going to attract into the United States foreign capital. And what will that do? Boost the value of the dollar, and therefore enhance the gap between American savings and investment, with investment being much greater than savings, which is a root cause of the American trade deficit. Trump's third problem is the exorbitant privilege of the United States dollar. It is the reason why every time there is a crisis, especially one emanating from within the United States, the dollar goes up and the US trade deficit gets worse, especially during periods of reduced demand, jobs, and employment within the United States. So if Donald Trump were serious about shrinking the American trade deficit, he would want to do away with the exorbitant privilege of the United States dollar. But of course, not only will he never allow himself to do that, because his best friends, his tribe, are the rentiers and the financiers, who will be aghast if the United States loses the exorbitant privilege of its dollar. It is highly unlikely that Donald Trump will want to be the first American president after the Second World War that loses the hegemonic power of the United States by losing the exorbitant privilege of the United States dollar. Some argue, and I think they do have a point, that maybe what he's trying to do, what Donald Trump is trying to do, is he is threatening the world, China and the European Union in particular, with very large tariffs in order to come to an arrangement with them to accept a depreciation of the Chinese yuan, of the euro, of competing currencies, in order for the United States to see its exports rise and its imports diminish. To cut a deal, in other words, something along the lines of what Ronald Reagan did in 1985, the infamous Plaza Accords, supposedly a multilateral meeting between the Europeans, the Americans, the Canadians, the Australians. But in reality, what the Plaza Accords were about was an ultimatum by Washington on Tokyo. Appreciate the yen massively, or else I'm going to slap large tariffs on Japanese exports. The Japanese are rolled over. They did as they were told. The reason why Japan's massive growth rates between 1950 and 1985 were eliminated, and why Japan lost its verve, its dynamism, was because they accepted those Plaza Accords. Is China likely to accept a new Plaza Accords? I assign a 0 probability to that possibility. China is no Japan. Japan was an occupied country by the United States. The United States wrote its constitution. There are tens of thousands of American soldiers still occupying Okinawa. Yeah. China, I will repeat this once more, is not Japan. It is...
Are foreign our foreign adversary is not going to behave like a vassal state, especially after they have seen the impact of a vassal state caving. The only economist I trust is Giannis. He invented the TF2 economy. It's true. Giannis Varoufakis, one of my favorite guests I've ever had on the broadcast. You know, also another just like myself, you know, Mr. Terror supporter, very vocal advocate of Palestinians, and former Greek finance minister, one of the leaders of the M25. A chatter, part of the same party as Giannis, said he was interested in talking with you again and reached out to you. Oh, he is? I would love to have him on again. I'll hit him up. That's my goat, dude. Yeah. Giannis's wonderful contributions to modern discourse are becoming more important by the day. Techno-feudalism, obviously his latest book, shines a fantastic light on the neo-feudalism that is happening in the tech sphere. That's my goated Greek right there, the Greek freak. Let's continue.
It's highly unlikely that they will accept at a time when the capital account of China, if anything, would recommend from an economic point of view a depreciation of the yuan. They will never accept a massive appreciation of the kind that would make the difference for the United States trade deficit in the way that Donald Trump would like. So this is pie in the sky. No new Plaza Accords between the United States and Beijing this time are on the horizon. In that sense, it looks very unlikely that what Donald Trump wants, at least both his objectives of shrinking the US trade deficit and maintaining the exorbitant privilege of the dollar, that both these objectives will be satisfied at once in 2025, in the next 4 years. The great question, however, for 2025 and beyond, concerns China's dilemma. Will Beijing decide to stay put, gaining time until the United States' internal contradictions, Trump's conundrum and dilemma, plays out? Or will Beijing make the choice, which it has not made yet? They have not made up their minds yet, and I think reasonably, will, however, at some point make the choice, make the decision to convert the BRICS area into a new version of Bretton Woods. Just as Bretton Woods had at its heart the US dollar, for the BRICS area to have the yuan at its heart, with more or less fixed exchange rates between the yuan, the rupiah, and other currencies, and with a view to recycle China's surpluses within the BRICS area, because that would be the greatest and most lethal danger for the exorbitant privilege of the dollar. This is not a decision that has been made as yet. Well, in 2025 or in the years following 2025, I think we shall know the answer. Till then, be well.
Sun Tzu, never interrupt your opponent while he's in the middle of making a mistake. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you can't force China's hand, if you can't actually force China's hand, all you're doing is forcing your allies, your trade partners, your closest trade partners into Chinese hands by playing, you know, nuclear madman with tariffs with everyone else. Now, obviously, there's a decent amount of Orientalism and white supremacy that plays a role in this process that will never allow them to fully subscribe to like Chinese hegemony. But it does kind of feel like the Chinese century of prosperity is upon us, and Donald Trump is accelerating everything in that direction. While ironically enough, I guess the most reasonable approach to it, if there is one, is that he's trying to supercharge the American economy by forcing our allies at gunpoint to basically turn around and purchase more American products. Anyway, KB Birdie, this is a beautiful. Thank you for the doodles. Bro, I closed my Duolingo class for listening to you say that. This economist is not wrong, but when tariffs lead to a recession in 1 to 2 years, all these things become details. I'm also an economist. I know it's a very niche topic that you will probably yell at me for bringing up, but the plastic bottle machines that the EU has forced countries like Malta to implement is basically a tax on the working class. Nobody cares about the negative effects of the EU power on small member nations. Someone said you hate your chatters. Yeah, I famously hate my chatters. And that's why I spend virtually every waking moment, no matter where I'm at in the world, by interacting with my community and doing content. This is definitely correct. I also famously, I hate my chatters, and I'm basically a slave to my community, and I'm terrified of disagreeing with my community, which is why I always yell at my community all the time. I both famously hate my chatters, but also am a slave to them, and also constantly are afraid of you know, constantly afraid of being seen as at odds with my community, which is a hive mind, of course. As long as it is like in the direction of negative commentary against someone that you despise, someone that you don't like, then it doesn't have to make sense at all. I hope you had a good time yesterday taking the day off. I had a fantastic time yesterday taking the day off. I do, however, have an issue when I do take the day off. I have an issue with like what to do with my free time, but because I'm such a goal-oriented person, I have to, in my brain, I have to be like, all right, now that I have this time, to myself, I must actually, you know, complete different things that I must do. This is a good opportunity to go and get a massage, hoping that this massage, this deep tissue massage, will solve some of the pain that I've had. It's not like crazy pain or anything like that, but that's what I did. I literally slept, got a massage, ate delicious Wagyu sukiyaki last night. It was amazing. Wake and I had a pound of Wagyu each. I linked up with Mr. Arthur and Miss Giff and some other people, and it was great. I think I needed it because I needed to, I definitely needed to, I had a lot of sleep debt. Someone in the chat said, ew, Miz. Don't worry, you're going to see a lot more of Miz for the next 3 days because he's out here. Bro's doing the Jordan Peterson carnivore diet. No. I still have my carbs. Don't worry. U.S. tariffs on Canada pauses. Canadians hit out at Trump. Oh, I also dressed Miz up, if you want to see. Miss Giff landed in Japan. I'm going to show you this real quick, and then we're going to continue with the tariffs talk. Miss Giff lands in Japan. He's dressed like shit, okay? He's dressed like absolute dog shit. And I was like, dude, this is the most unacceptable thing I've ever seen. You have to fix this immediately. I was also featured in the Akahata newspaper alongside March. You can kind of see in this photo. I posted it on my Instagram post as well. And I'll read you guys the translation of the Akahata newspaper in a second. Here's me getting a massage, feeling sad now that everyone left and Miskiv is here. But yeah, I took him to a Beams, and I basically made him get clothes so he would look cool. Okay. I made him get a barber jacket, a nice little black turtleneck, and nice pants. And I made him get some new shoes too. Like, I changed his entire outfit, and they were making fun of us because I made him dress like myself, basically, like my child. Why do your legs look freakishly short in that pic? It's because I have this very long sweater on. And the pants are also very baggy. Are you going to transition into being a Japanese streamer instead of a Turkish one? Dola's all style now. No. Yeah, Dad took his stepson shopping. That's the vibes you got. Yeah, he's a little mini me. But yeah. What has been the Japan trip highlight so far? Every day has been a highlight. The low light has been yesterday when everybody left, and it wasn't even because like, oh, I'm gonna miss them, which obviously that is a part of it, but it reminded me that my time in Japan is coming to an end as well, and that's what made me sad, because I don't want my time in Japan to end. However, every single person I talked to talked very seriously. Every single person that I have talked to out here have very seriously been like, why don't we just live here? Why don't we just live here? And the issue for me is the time difference is far too severe. Like, I would live here. I would live here if it wasn't for the severe time zone difference. Like, not even a question. But unfortunately, Just change schedule? No, dude. I need it to be like 11 a.m. PST is already late as hell. JCP needs to work on immigration reform. There's only one reason why I can't live out here. And well, it's not even the one reason why I can't live out here is not even necessarily that I don't speak Japanese. I don't even care about that. The major reason why I can't live out here is straight up because the time zone difference is so severe that if I were to live out here, I would have to wake up at like 3 a.m. My entire day would be the exact opposite. Bro, you're literally getting 35K every stream. Yeah, but that's not because I'm in Japan. That's because Donald Trump is ruining the fucking planet and everyone is trying to make sense of it all. Okay. So the American government will do something that's awful, right? They'll be like, we're signing an executive order that is going to make the price of eggs $25, okay, for a dozen. And then Republicans will immediately look to make that come across as based, okay? This is actually based. You're soy cooked. You're soy pilled and gay if you think that like eggs should be $4 a dozen, right? And here's yet another example of this from self-declared American supremacist ALX. The IRS basically is deleting the direct file tax program, which allowed Americans for a brief moment in time to file their taxes directly with the IRS, no longer relying on Intuit and all of these other cottage industries that have been designed to make the IRS tax filing process as complicated as possible so they can make money and also steal all of your data. And then oftentimes, due to security leaks and compromises, leak all of that data and reveal it for all to see, all the way down to your social security number. So this was actually a good thing. The direct file tax program was not only a good thing, but it was a step in the right direction. And it was also helpful for American taxpayers, right? And the far left government-wide computer office that was recently taken over by allies of Elon Musk is also the same agency that built Elizabeth Warren's direct file tax program. Direct file puts the government in charge of preparing people's tax returns for them. Yeah. Felix says, it's gay and dysgenic to do your taxes without paying for shitty software that absolutely fucking no one likes. Do you want to be based and support Intuit? And that's precisely what's going on here. The dynamic is clear. They will turn around and be like, oh, this thing that was like actually really good for you is actually gay. And we're so sick for deleting it. Look at what my dad said when I asked him about this. After the disastrous Obamacare rollout, I would never endorse a new Fed website, particularly one involving sensitive info, without a couple of years of them working out the kinks. Never trust your own government with any more personal info than absolutely necessary. Does your dad not realize that your government already has this information? I'm so confused. Does your dad also not realize that like private corporations are infinitely worse at protecting your data than the federal government is? It's taxes. Here's something that is mind-boggling to Americans. In a country like Norway, for example, the government already files your taxes for you because they know what you have to pay the government, and they, at the end of the year, will just send you a receipt. Other countries They love that Uyghur bait is tragic. Yeah, ironically enough, my takes on this, once again, my takes on this have, always been incredibly critical of the Chinese government, and yet most people don't hear that because they don't actually watch. They literally only fucking see clips. And when I explain to them that not only have I talked about the Chinese re-education camps and also mass surveillance and how unacceptable it was in an effort to combat Uyghur separatism in Xinjiang, okay, and that those camps have actually stopped existing, you can so simply say, well, I didn't see that article. You just made it up. Well, that article does exist. You just didn't do your due diligence, either because you're stupid or you're disingenuous. Maybe both. Okay? That was what was so crazy about this. Here it is. Why did you say there was a genocide? HasanAbi reacts to the AP article on China and Uyghurs. This is from October 14th, 2021, streamed on 10/13/2021. This is the article that I was referencing. But once again, this is not necessarily prescient or important here. We're talking about the tariffs.
And increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. Proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together. Around a quarter of all trade between the United States and Canada crosses that bridge, the Ambassador's Bridge. It's £260 million worth of goods every single day. A lot of them cars, car parts, many of which crisscross the border multiple times before they end up either at an assembly plant in Detroit on that side of the river or here in Windsor, Ontario, which is Canada's car capital. These are tightly integrated supply chains, hugely complicated to unpick and hugely costly if every crossing involves a tariff. Jib, who we interrupt over his lunch at a car repair workshop, is not positive about the future.
It's not easy for people as is today to survive out here with pay and, taxes as is. Now we're adding an extra 25%.
He's an idiot. I don't think anyone from Canada is going to pay him anything to ship their cars over there. I don't think that's...
Do you think he actually thinks that you'll become his 51st state?
I think he needs to go back to school and do a lot of research on what's reality in life.
Mexico has won an 11th hour reprieve, saying it will strengthen its northern border with an additional 10,000 troops in return for a 1-month pause in tariffs. The United States, in turn, promising to combat the flow of guns into Mexico and the hands of the cartels.
I told him that we've been working together on immigration, that there were results, always based on protection and respect for human rights. And then we talked about his interest, and ours as well, in reducing the traffic of fentanyl. But I also explained to him the seriousness of the amount of high-powered weapons that enter from the United States.
For all the noise, Canadians remain baffled as to what exactly it is that Donald Trump wants from them.
The pretext offered is the flimsiest pretext possible. Less than 1%, in fact, around 0.2% of the fentanyl that comes into the U.S. comes through the Canadian border. If border security were the issue, this could be solved in 5 minutes.
Fresh off the plane from his weekend in Mar-a-Lago, the U.S. president lashed out at the EU, the U.K. getting a mention too. No alliance is sacred when it comes to America first.
They take almost nothing.
Can you explain what's going on with Trump/Musk and the U.S. aid, and if it's an impeachable crime? Sorry if it was already covered. I haven't gotten to the U.S. aid side of the story yet because we're still covering the tariff side of the story, and I think this is just going to be an ongoing issue with offering any sort of coverage to the Trump administration because they just hit every angle so fast and undermine virtually every aspect of the federal government. But if your question is like, oh, is this an impeachable offense? Make no mistake. Just because something is unconstitutional or technically an impeachable offense doesn't mean that those things are going to be prosecuted, okay? As a matter of fact, there's a very high likelihood that they will not be prosecuted. Part of the reason is because the Democratic Party is in a state of panic and chaos right now and are much weaker than they were even the first go around when Donald Trump became president the first time around. But also the other part of it is because Donald Trump was president the first time around. And in that process, and in the 4 years after that process, with an inept and weak administrative state, the Republican Party has basically set this entire structure up in a way where even someone as crazy as Donald Trump can very deliberately and very clearly undermine the previous power of the federal government at his behest. And there is not really anything you can do. The greatest example of this, of course, is the United States Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court has a Republican supermajority, a conservative supermajority. So any kind of unconstitutional act implemented by this government will very easily make its way up lower courts all the way to the Supreme Court and will quickly be solidified. Okay? There are obviously certain things that maybe they'll push back against, but ultimately there's not really much anyone can do other than direct action and consistently trying to fight back against this administration. But yeah, there is virtually no opposition party at this point.
And we take everything from them, millions of cars, tremendous amounts of food and farm products. So the UK is way out of line, and we'll see the UK, but European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line, but I'm sure that one, I think that one can be worked out. But the European Union it's an atrocity.
Taking a wrecking ball to long-standing trade ties would fray partnerships and put a strain on the global economy. Testing those partnerships, too, is a dangerous game, but one Trump seems intent on playing.
Do you think Mexico and Canada complying with the border reinforcement is good or bad? I feel like it makes the MAGA people think Trump got an upper hand on them. Yeah, I think a lot of what is going on with Mexico and Canada is basically just, trying to get the old man to feel like he's got a W, okay? In order to get him off your back, you're just like, yes, sir. You're doing great, sir. And that's precisely what happened with both Canada and Mexico in this process, where they didn't genuinely change anything. They're just trying to appease him in the most performative ways possible because there's not really much else you can do. Considering how much awesome power the hegemonic superpower has, if you have a president that is willing to do insane shit for no real decipherable reason, you just have to say, oh yeah, we're totally doing what you want us to. You're so brilliant. You're so awesome. It doesn't really change anything though, ultimately, because they might not. The Trump administration might not actually concede. He could just tomorrow turn around and say, no, we're doing tariffs again.
You don't know Robert Lighthizer, but his influence with President Trump could change America's economy. Lighthizer was...
All the people yesterday saying that this is what me and 70 other million people voted for in reference to tariffs are real quiet today, but they're not. They didn't vote for this. I don't even think the 70 million people directly voted for... 70 million people directly voted for a mass deportations either. One could make that argument, but I think advocating for something or voting for an administration and then not recognizing the impacts of said legislative agenda is two separate things. It's something that happens very consistently in American politics. Nobody voted to fucking make eggs more expensive, and yet here they are. You know what I mean? People vote for numerous different reasons, party loyalty being one of the number one reasons. Disdain for the Democratic Party is another one. Being misguided is another one. But ultimately, as history has shown time and time again, as recently as this last administrative cycle, people vote for certain things, and when those things actually are implemented, they go, oh my God, that was a terrible fucking idea. What a devastating and awful idea. Okay, I should not have done this. Abortion comes to mind. I know you said you wouldn't, but please consider watching. Yeah. Whenever people come in, here, I'm untiming that person out. Whenever people come in and ask, oh, can you address the nuke? Tell them to go watch Ethan Klein versus Hasan Piker Explained from 3 months ago. because virtually all the things that he brought up in his video, none of them are new, and they've already been addressed. So if you're truly seeking out the truth, there is a place where you can get my honest assessment and the additional context in a lot of those clips. Okay? That is if you truly do care about the truth. Yeah. And then you should ask yourself why this video was even made when all of these clips out of context were already addressed with the additional context. That chatter is okay. He's in Carter's chat a lot. Yeah. It is pretty interesting to see that, though, like when you got, concentration camps being built and people are like, hey, can you readdress all of the things that people have said about you in complete bad faith?